Yes, Bijan, please start the session.
Uh, a very good evening to one and all who are present here in this today's talk. And today, among us, we have our invited speaker, Dr. D. Mary Kim Haokip. Before I invite Dr. Haokip to start or to deliver her talk, I would like to take this privilege to introduce Dr. Haokip. Dr. Mary received her PhD degree from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and she received her MPhil degree from Central Institute of English and Foreign Language, Northeast Center, Shillong. And Dr. Mary's area of specialization lies in ELT, that is English language teaching, descriptive linguistics, and language documentation of endangered languages. Dr. Haokip has an work experience in Google Online India Private Limited, Hyderabad, India, as a training specialist and as an English language faculty in British School of Language, North Center, Kingsway Camp, Delhi, and language investigator for Thado Kuki language, that is the project for Northeast Language Development, NELT by the CIIL and Mysore. She has published a book entitled Culture in English Language, Teaching a Case Study of English Syllabus at Higher Secondary Level in Meghalaya. So apart from this, also Dr. Mary has a number of articles that has been published in national and international reputed journals, and she has given many talks on seminar and conferences which is held in national and international levels. So Dr. Mary is very active in endangered languages of Northeast India, especially in Tibeto-Burman. So today she's going to talk on verb stem alternation in Thado. So let me take this privilege to invite Dr. Mary to deliver her talk. Over to you, madam.
A very good evening, everyone, and thank you, Bijane, for that beautiful and very elaborate introduction. I also take this opportunity to thank the organizers of Tiblani for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. Um, Today's talk is going to be on stem verb alternation in Thado. I will not be taking much time on a weekend like this since the lockdown is everybody is already in a weekend mode. So I intend to take like 30 minutes of your time. I hope I'm audible and my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so to begin with, the objective of the talk is to examine the phonological differences between stem 1 and stem 2 in Thado, and also to look into the morphological and syntactic distribution of the two forms of the verb. As I've mentioned, it's not going to be a very long talk. I have organized my talk first in the following way. First, I'll give a brief profile of the language, then move on to talk about stem alternation in Kuki-Chin languages, and finally look into the more phonological differences between the two forms and discuss their different environments in which they occur. About the language, Thado is a northern Kuki-Chin language of the Tibeto-Burman language family, which is spoken by a little more than 2 lakh speakers across Burma and India. In Burma, it's mostly spoken in the Segyang division of Burma, and in India, it's spoken in the northeastern part of the country, mainly in 3 states, Manipur, Nagaland, and Assam. The literature in Thado, there are many spellings, they refer to the same language. About the linguistic features, Thado is a tonal language with three tones in isolation. It belongs to the pronominalized group of Tibeto-Burman language family, and the features that it shares with other Kukichin groups are stem verb alternation and tone, and of course, it belongs to the pronominalized group. And like other Tibeto-Burman language family, the language is a subject verb final language with SOV as its basic word order. Uh, and yeah, that is all I have for the language. Moving on, let us talk about stem verb alternation in Kukichin languages. Stem verb alternation is considered to be one of the proto-Kukichin features. There are already many works done in some of the Kukichin languages, like Central Chin languages. We have Mizo by Changte, then we have Van Wyck's work and Kathor, Kazao, all this. And in Southern Chin languages, we have works on Dai and I don't know how to pronounce this. I think it's Quechua. In Northern Chin also, there are already some literature available, like the works of Tidim Chin by Henderson, Sizang by Sten, and the recent one by Taylor. And in Thado, also covered to 2009 has already done a work on this topic. Stem verb alternation in Thado. In Thado, all verbs have two forms. That is stem 1 and stem 2, which is popularly known as the stem 1 and stem 2 in Kukichin literature. To show an example, the verb for stand in the stem 1 is ding, and in stem 2, it is din. So for non-Kukichin speakers, this may be a little strange, but for a Kukichin speaker, I don't think this is a new thing. It is a typological feature of the Kukichin languages. Stem 1 was the morphologically simplex form, while stem 2 was derived from stem 1 by a process of suffixation and tone change. Stem 1 sometimes functions as a verb within the matrix clause and sometimes is embedded in the nominalized clause. Stem 2 is always embedded in a nominalized clause constituent without a subject. This is by Hyman and Van Wyck and Hyman and King 2009. Now moving on, let us discuss the phonology of stem 1 and stem 2 forms of the verb. In Thado, both segmental differences and tonal differences are observed in the two forms, that is stem 1 and stem 2. Stem 1 can take any of the three tones. Here I would like to mention that there are three tones in Thado. In stem 1, the verb can take any of the three forms. But if we look at stem 2, it's mostly the third tone, that is the low tone that the stem 2 carries. In case of some verbs, there are no segmental changes, but only the change is in the tone. Some of the segmental changes that are there in the verbs are coda alternation. Sometimes nasal becomes a non-nasal. We'll talk about that in the next slide. Coda deletion. There is also sometimes coda addition. Then vowel reduction and vowel lengthening. These are some of the segmental and suprasegmental differences between the two stems. In the absence of segmental changes, a verb with a low tone in stem 1 will have two identical forms. Or in other words, you'll have the two stems will be homophonous in nature. Here I have a few examples to show you the changes or the differences between the stem 1 and stem 2. The first example, to reach or to arrive, hlung, has the high tone in stem 1 and it becomes hlun. The velar nasal becomes an alveolar nasal. Nga has to become na, and the high tone becomes low tone in stem 2. In the next example, the thing is clean, and stem 2 it becomes thin. So you can see there is a change in the tone as well as a change in the coda. And next example is bang, to clap one's hand or to slap somebody's face. That is a bang with the high tone in stem 1, and be, the nasal alternates to a stop, glottal stop. Then you have vowel, means the coda deletion in the word for roam, to roam around, is va, it becomes va. So you can see there's a clear change in the tone and the final coda is being deleted. And the next example, here there's a coda change as well as the change in the tone for the word like push is son, which becomes son. Then to the word for look is vet, which becomes ve in stem 2. Then you have another example of coda deletion, cup, to cry becomes ka in the stem 2. And we also have another example of coda deletion, to throw something, is sep, which becomes se in the stem 2. And here in the coda deletion examples, the vowels are slightly lengthened when the coda is deleted, as you can see in the last 3-4 examples. So these show both segmental change, that is coda alternation or coda deletion or addition, plus tonal changes. I have a few more examples where you have just vowel reduction. There is no coda deletion or addition, but there is also a change in the tone. Examples, zo, to win, or to win or to finish is zo, and it becomes zo in stem 2. So the diphthong has become a monophthong. Then you have the word for cook is hon, which becomes hon. Then the word for die is thi, which becomes thi. The word for dance is lam, which becomes lam in stem 2. So here, as you can see, there is no modification in the coda, but there is sometimes vowel reduction, or sometimes it remains the same, but there is a change in the tone. And as we have mentioned before, there are also verbs which have the same forms both in the stem 1 and stem 2. Here are a few examples. The word for read or study is sim, art is to cut, sit is tow, and thought is to send. Here, as you can see, both forms have are identical, and I have not marked the tone. All the words are with the low tone. So we can summarize by saying that stem 2 always has the low tone, while stem 1 can have any of the tones, and it is not predictable as such. Stem 2 forms involve a segmental change, like we have already seen from the examples. There's coda deletion, sometimes coda addition, then coda alternation, and vowel lengthening or vowel reduction. Stem 1 is the default form, whereas stem 2 is the derived form from stem 1. Moving on to the other discussions regarding the occurrence or choice of stem 1 and stem 2. Let us start with imperative sentences. Imperative sentence or imperative clauses are the most simplest forms of sentences in Thado. In imperative sentences, whether they are polite requests or commands or haltative, the choice is the stem 1. As you can see in examples 1, 2, and 3, come, which can be hungin, is come a command. You have stem 1, then to, which is a polite request, you still have stem 1, and Imperatives are negated by adding he, which has no impact on the stem type. So negation doesn't affect imperatives, whether it's prohibitive or whether it's imperative or negative imperatives. They all take the stem one as their they all take the stem one. Moving on to nominalization and stem. This one, the most common or the most productive nominalizer or the normalizing suffix is now, which have different meanings in different contexts. One very productive is suffixation of na to something, which means a place to do something, or and another example is instrument for doing something. For example, in 4 you have hanot na, which means ha is teeth and not is brush, and na is the nominalizer, which becomes a toothbrush, a thing to brush with. Whereas in 5, the na is attached to look, which is sleep, and it becomes a thing to sleep on. Which literally means bed. So in both, the nominalization takes place with stem 2 form of the verb and not with stem 1. Looking at affirmative sentences, there are 2 types of affirmative sentences in Thado. One is the simpler one, which is with the declarative marker or the sentence ending marker, that is E. The simplest type of affirmative statement in Thado will have this template where you have the subject, you have the object, then you have the person clicks, and then the stem 1 plus other things like number, and it ends with E. So example 6 and 7, you have I'm standing or I was standing, because will be kadingi. You can drop the K because of the car. So here you, in 6 and 7, whether it is intransitive or transitive, the choice is for, or in this kind of clauses, is the stem 1. I kill a person or I kill one man. Here you can see here also that takes the stem 1. So irrespective of transitivity, the choice for this kind of construction with the A clauses, I mean not A, but E clauses, is the stem 1 form of the verb. Whereas if you look at the second type, which is with the ahi construction, the choice is for not for stem 1 but always for stem 2. Stem 2 is preceded by agreement critic and optionally by an overt subject and followed by a he. So the same sentence I am standing can also be said Kei kadi nahi. Here you have the subject, then you have din, which is stem 2, and ahi. You have a, which is actually agreement with the third person, and you have he, the copula. So and in 9, the same sentence mi khat becomes mi khat ha ahi. So then the question arises, then what is the difference between the earlier example and these examples? In the ahi construction, the sentences as a whole is a copula clause. That is why you have this one. The subject of the copula is nulled. The nominalized clause containing stem 2 is the complement of the copula. That's why you don't have agreement with the subject K, but the agreement is with the copula he. So it is like, it is that I am standing. It's not just I am standing, but it is that I am standing. So you actually have the nominalized clause containing stem 2. Then the subject of the copula matrix clause is distinct from the embedded stem 2 complement is evident by the fact that he always takes third person singular marking rather than agreeing with the subject of the stem 2 predicate. Otherwise, in the E construction types, you will have agreement with the first person. But here, because it is the he construction, the agreement for this is not with K but with he. It is that I am standing. The he type constructions are not felicitous out of the blue. Instead, they are a response to a question like what happened or what are you doing? So in the earlier example, kadingi, I'm standing. But here it will be a response to something like the context is different, the semantics and the pragmatics is different. What are you doing right now? Or what happened? What are you doing right now? I am standing, I'm not sitting. It is that I am standing. It will mean something like that. And in the example 9, what actually happened? And then, oh, it will mean that I accidentally or I happened to kill a person. So here the meaning is different. And looking at it, it doesn't look different, but actually the meaning is different with the example 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. So here it is when you it is you can it's more focus or it's more response to some but a specific question, what happened or what are you doing right now. So but in the other example, I'm standing, I'm not this is that I'm standing, but here it is that I am standing. So what we want to say here is that in this ahi construction, the choice is for stem 2 and stem 1. Negative declarative sentences. There are different ways of expressing negation in Thado, but what is of interest to us is the lo and po. Po expresses ordinary sentence negation, while lo occurs only within nominalized constituents. Or stem 2 constructions are negated with lo. Stem 1 environment state po. So 10 and 11 will illustrate what I am saying here. Kanmong po, I don't agree here. The agree will be in first in the stem 1 form, but kanok lawahi, I do not agree. It is that I do not agree. Here it will be like I don't agree means I don't agree kind of thing. So here it will be when the ahi comes, you have lo, and it is negated here. It is negated by they cannot be interchanged. When you have po, then it will be nom, and when you have lo, it will be nob. So you have with the po the choices for stem 1, and with the negative marker lo, it is the stem 2 form of the verb. The irrelevant marker then appears in statements about the future. So Thado has this release and irrelevant marking. The release is unmarked, whereas the irrelevant is marked with ding, which marks future tense and also conditionals and complements. You can see in 12, 13, and 14. Here I will stand. Kadin ding ahi. Then in the next sentence, if you cry, I will also cry. In 14 you have complements. I want you to agree. So here what happens is with the irrelevant ding, it is always the stem 2 and stem 1 can never occur. Even in sentence 14 where you have e construction, here because of the ding you don't have stem 1 but in stem 2. So with all irrelevant sentences where you have ding, the choice will be always for stem 2 and not stem 1. Other complex verbs which have applicative functions, causatives and benefactives are the two applicative sentences where the agreement again is with stem 2. So I am standing will be kadingi, but if I made her stand or I made you stand, it will not be ding, but it will be din. So kadin sa a because of the causative. In case of causativization, the choice is for stem 2, and likewise in benefactive sentences also, I'm standing for you or I am standing for him. It will be kadin pahi, where you have the benefactive. Here again, the choice will be for stem 2 and not stem 1. In other complex clauses like subordinate clauses, one of the examples of subordinate clauses with the temporal clause where the subordinate temporal clause precedes the main clause. The verb in the subordinating clause always takes stem 2. Like kane zo in And then there's a win kane. After you eat, I ate. So you have two clauses where the subordinating clause takes the stem to ne, whereas the matrix clause takes the stem one ne. So this and in the next example, kane is a wa kane and the ne is a wa kane he. You can have both constructions where with the he or with the e, but in both cases the choice is for stem 2. With the antecedents of conditional clauses, also the choice is for stem 2. If you eat, I will also eat. Where you have the conditional clause takes the stem 2 form of the verb. Other examples or other clauses where you have the stem 2 is on the complement clause. Imposition of stem 2 on a subordinate clause extends to complement clauses also. I want you to eat. So here you have ne, and then I believe that you ate. Here also the choice is for the stem 2 form of the verb. The only exception to the generalization that complement clauses take stem 2 is direct speech, where the subordinate verb takes the same form as in the original quoted sentence. I told that you ate. So otherwise, the choice in complement clause is always the stem 2. Now coming to WH questions, the choice for stem 1 and stem 2 depends on what is being questioned or the position of the WH question. So object WH questions behave differently from subject WH questions. The object WH questions always take stem 2, while subject WH questions take mostly takes stem 1. As you can see in the examples here, who is Kim looking at here? The choice is for stem 2 because the WH questions the object. Kim in Koiham a vet 2. So you have vet, which is the stem 2, whereas in 25 Koiham Kim ve. Here, who is looking at Kim here? The choice will be for stem 1. So in WH questions, it depends on the position of the question. So this is a summing up of the occurrence of the two forms of the verbs. As you can see in the table, the stem 1 occurs with imperatives and hortatives, and also in declarative clauses with E construction, the simpler ones, with the negative po, and in transitive subject WH questions, and also with transitive WH questions that questions the subject. And stem 2 occurs with nominalized verbs with instrumental suffix na, object-oriented nominals, and also with the ahi declarative clauses. The stem 2 also occurs with the negative low and the ahi declarative clauses, which is already mentioned before. Then antecedent clauses in conditional clauses, temporal clauses, complement clauses, ablatives like the causatives and benefactives, pe and sa. And stem 2 also occurs with transitive WH questions that questions the object. So I would like to summarize by saying that phonologically both, as you can see from the examples, both segmental changes and tonal differences are observed in stem 1 and stem 2 forms of the verbs in Thado. Stem 1 occurs within a subject-oriented nominalized verb phrases or clauses, and in the absence of nominalization. Whereas stem 2 verbs occur in object WH questions and in subordinate clauses like object, conditional clauses, reason clauses, and nominalized clauses. Since stem 2 does not, verbs do not occur in simpler declarative clauses, it can be considered as reduced verb. That is, they are more nominal than verb-like. And these are my references. Thank you so much for listening to me patiently.
Thank you, Mary ma'am. That was a very comprehensive presentation on the verb stem alternation in different constructions and formatives in Thado. So thank you very much for presenting this talk. Now it's time for discussion and question and answer queries. Yes, so participants can unmute and can speak directly to the speaker for any question and query. Meantime, when we are waiting for participants to come up with a question and query, Mary ma'am, apart from this stem 1 and stem 2, does the language permit to have one more stem like third, some kind of process is there, or it's only stem 1 and stem 2?
Okay, thank you, Bijin, for that question. Yes, I was also curious because in Mizo they have stem 1, stem 2, and stem 3, but in Thado, I have checked and cross-checked and found that there is only stem 1 and stem 2 and not stem 3.
Okay, thank you very much, madam. Yes, dear participants, you can unmute and can speak to our speaker.
Yeah, Tamsi here. Thank you, Mary, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Like you said, it's an interesting phenomena that we see in these Cookiechin languages. So I just had one or two comments and maybe one question. So yeah, this is something which we also looked at earlier, the stem alternation in Tadao. And apart from the phonological and even the syntactic occurrences, so yeah, because of its complexity, we called it, if I remember correctly, something like lexico phonomorphosyntactic intonational morpheme, because when you look at this alternation, it actually involves everything, right from phonology, morphology, syntax, intonation, and all that. So we gave it that name. One interesting thing which we observed was with compounding, actually. So if you look at compounding with these stems, it's very interesting how you get different readings based on whether it's stem 1 or stem 2, which part of the compound. So I think we had this word mudging and mudgin, right? To whistle and sound of whistling. So it kind of differentiates whether it is stem 1 or stem 2. It kind of differentiates with what meaning you get in these constructions. So I just added that because I think in the presentation, compounding was not part of it. And it's actually very interesting that you get so much different readings based on whether it is stem 1 or stem 2. One question that I had was, see, these stem alternation in verbs, this is also seen in, I think, some of the African languages. Now, when we say that this is a phenomena that is seen in Cookiechin languages, I'm just no. It's a query because in languages like I think Imol, I didn't see any verb alternation. So I think it's disappeared, or I don't know whether it's there or not. But this to say that it is a characteristic of Kukichin, does it include all Kukichin languages, or are there certain languages which does not exhibit this kind of alternation? So, I mean, I think there are many Kukichin speakers in this group, so they can also, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing was whether this is exhibited in all the Kukichin languages in this area, or is it confined to certain branches of Kukichin?
Okay, so thank you, Timsu, for the comments and for the question. Yeah, to add to what you have said about compounding, I have not included that because it will be like that can be, yeah, that can be another talk altogether because it's very interesting that moodging and mooding both are verbs. Actually, you can have at four, not just to moodging, then you can have moodging, then you can have Mudgil. Also, like there. So, depending on which verb takes part in the compounding, the meaning keeps on changing, and it's very interesting. That is again another topic that can be actually researched. And yeah, to answer to your question, yes, it is said that it's a feature of Kukichi languages, but there are also many languages like what you have mentioned, Imol, then even Biate and all this also, I don't know, the native speakers will be best to answer whether they have lost it or whether it was not there at all. But if you look at languages like Mizo, then Waipei, Tidim Chin, Xizang, Kado, Zo, all these languages, the I don't know about other groups, but the Northern Kuki-Chin groups, I think, has all of most of them have this. What not linguistically, but like what we call the old Kuki-Chin group, the like and the new Kukichin. The new Kukichin group seems to have, but I do some of the old Kukichin languages, like you have mentioned, Imol and Biatian, or seems I don't know. We have to look into the history whether they have lost it or it was not there at all. But there are, yes, definitely there are many languages within the Kukichin groups that do exhibit this feature. Other native speakers in this group of Kukichin languages may add to that if you have.
Yes, all right. Yeah, that can be done from our participants. Thank you, Dr. Temsu, for that question. Next, we have with the name iPhone. If I'm not mistaken, it might be Ma'am Sangte. Yeah, ma'am, you can unmute and you can ask.
Yes. Sorry, I missed most of the presentation. I just got back home. But regarding this feature of verb stem alternation, the word verb stem alternation just is just sort of to explain that a verb can have more than one stem. And the relationship between the two stems, which are traditionally called stem 1 and stem 2, varies from language to language. So in Mizo, it's either derived from nominalization or from causative prefix or suffix. And there are some historical reasons for that. But on the other hand, so the second stem or stem 2 is normally derived from stem 1 in Mizo. But in Lai, it's the other way around. And it has different grammatical reasons. And Ken Van Beek is the one that has done most of the work on Lai. So so when you talk about verb stem alternation, it's just referring to the phonological differences and not for any of the grammatical reasons, which are different from language to language. And verb stem alternation is one of the features of what is called the Cookie-Chin languages. And the name Cookie-Chin is also it causes a lot of problems in a lot of regions. So Scott Delancey has proposed using the term South Central Tibeto-Burman languages, which is what people working in this what is so-called Cookie-Chin languages prefer to use that term. But I don't know how widely it has been accepted. But if you are doing field work, especially in Northeast India, it is a problem if you refer to a language as Cookie-Chin. It causes a lot of problems for the linguists. So that is one development in the area. And so it is one of the features. And so it means, and there are some languages that don't have it. So, so if a language has it, it definitely belongs to it. But if it doesn't have it, it might or might not belong to it. So you have to have other tests to prove that it belongs to this group. So, so I would say it is one of the features. And then, you know, there are several features. And then, of course, you have, you know, the phonology and the syntax that you need to look at. So when you are describing a language group, you have to look at a lot of different things that they have in common. So and so it, you know, so for each language we don't have data to show. We just know they have the verb stem alternation, and which means that they have two different phonological forms, and how these two forms are related phonologically or syntactically is something that we don't have information for in most of the languages. So I'm working on Ralte, and Ralte also has this verb stem alternation. And so there's a lot of things we need to look at when we're discussing this. So so yeah, I will look at the paper later, but it's, you know, it's important to know that we have these features, and it's really encouraging to see, you know, scholars coming up and, you know, looking at it. So I would encourage you, when you look at Tado, to see, you know, you said there are many different forms, you know, and to look at, you know, what causes the change in meaning. Is it nominalization, or is it a syntactic change, or is it semantic change, or is it a combination of both? And it could depend on the semantic class of the verb. Or is it more of a, you know, active kind of verb, or is it more of a passive kind of verb? So a lot of different things you can look at, and also verb suffixes. You know, it might be limited to certain verb suffixes or verb prefixes. So those are different things that might, you know, be interesting to look at in your language. But yeah, thank you very much for doing all this work. And I would, you know, I think you're just, you know, you're not even just starting. This is a huge area. So you have a lot of scope, you know, to explore.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Changte, for your observation and comments on the even from classification and on the constructions and the stems also. Thank you very much, Madam. Yes.
Thank you, Madam, for Changte, for that comment. Yes, when I looked at this Thado, it's actually not as simple as what we think. Everything is involved. Phonologically, it is also very complex, and yeah, it involves semantics. It involves pragmatics. It also involves syntax. So there, whatever you have mentioned, I have kind of looked at it, and I will try to send you the paper as well, madam.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't think they've been able to reconstruct the, you know, historically the relationship between 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. So, but another comment I would like to add is Ken Van Beek has suggested that when you gloss, so for example, if you have, you know, stem 1 and stem 2 for the verb to eat. To gloss one as eat stem 1 and the other one as eat stem 2. So whatever method you're using to gloss them. So that is what in the last Sino-Tibetan conference, that's what Ken Van Beek suggested. So that, if someone doesn't know the language and they see only stem 2, they might wonder if it doesn't have a stem 1. So and that's for information for anyone working in these type of languages.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Vijen.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So I was trying to give opportunity to others, and
Okay,
I take the last question. So since nobody is raising the question, so let me take the privilege.
Yes, sir. Please go
So
ahead, sir.
I have one comment, then some other questions. So one comment is that in your phonological differences, for the stem or example for the word look, I think you have reversed. So wave should be in stem 1 and vet should be in stem 2. In your,
yes. Okay.
Yeah. So wave should be in stem 1 and vet should be in stem 2.
Okay.
And one of the best testing ground for stem 1 and stem 2 distribution in Thado is that in interrogative sentences, this occurs, stem 2 occurs, and then in the declarative or in normal statements, you have step 1 that you have already pointed out. So coming back to the discussion on what you have already pointed out by the speaker and by also Madam Changte. So Madam Changte has always insisted that morphosyntactic grounds should be the most robust criterion or criteria to distinguish whether a language belongs to Kuki-Chin or not. With regards to the distribution of stem alternation, we all know that many of these old Kuki-Chin languages, by gradation, though we don't have old Kuki-Chin in the real linguistic sense of the term, most of these languages which gradation term as old Kuki, they are perhaps quite older languages which came to Northeast and perhaps also one of the older groups. So most of these languages seems not to have a stem alternation, including Barak Valley Kuki-Chin languages. All the Kuki-Chin languages of Barak Valley that I have surveyed don't have a stem alternation. But if you look at the phonologically, there's a lot of phonological similarities and also lexical similarities. So we cannot simply judge the affiliation of language purely on morphosyntactic features. So my contention here is that perhaps these old Kuki-Chin languages, so-called old Kuki-Chin languages, did not innovate these features. So after the split of Kuki-Chin languages, perhaps they never innovated these features. But the so-called central and northern Kuki-Chin might have innovated these changes. So perhaps this is my feeling. To say the other way around is that it is lost in all Kuki-Chin languages, and then it is still retained in central and northern Chin languages. So there are two contentious issues where Kuki-Chin scholars have to look into. So which of these two hypotheses support our claim? So I don't have the exact answer, but the intuition is that stem alternation, which occurs nowhere in the family, in Tibeto-Burman family, perhaps has been innovated at later stages among the central and Kuki-Chin languages. And some of the so-called old Kuki-Chin languages might not have had this stem alternation. So this is one point that I wanted to throw. So if you can throw more light on that, I'll be happy.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your comments and suggestions. regarding this classification of languages, whether should we render on the morphosyntactic features or should we consider the phonological features also? That's a very important thing that I think to give classification of languages. Thank you, sir. Yes, there other participants, please unmute if you have any comments, observation, or question, query that you want to share with the speaker and with other audience.
Hello,
also.
Bijen.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, please, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
I'm on
Please
the
go.
road right now, so I hope my
Oh,
my
okay.
network my network supports me.
Yeah, it's yes.
It's clear, huh?
Yeah, it's clear. It's
Okay.
coming clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Haokip, for that wonderful paper, um, and like very interesting data too. There was one particular interesting feature that I noticed, was that the agreement ahi, which is occurring, like, so the are is the third person singular agreement, and it is occurring in sentences even where the third person singular is not there, or am I correct? Or did I spell something?
Maybe, ma'am, your voice was
Yes.
broken in between, so we were not able to hear you clearly. Can you repeat once again?
Okay. Yes. In ahi.
Yes.
Yes. So the third person singular agreement marker is a, right?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
it? Yes, and it is interesting because I noticed that in some sentences where the third person singular is not there at all, the ahi is occurring. So what is the role of the are there? Even though the third person singular is not there in the sentence. So that is what I found very interesting. In some sentences, I noticed that it was not there. Can you still hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yes. And another thing is that my little knowledge of Mizo, if it permits me, maybe a Changte can help me out over here too. Like what you term as the system to automation is also true. And so there and a new argument is being introduced in Katshutse. So is this happening in Thadao too, as you find in Mizo? I don't know whether my Mizo sentences are really correct, but yeah.
What is your Mizo sentence? Can you repeat?
One is atru, that is he is sitting, and the other sentence is I made him sit, or I made her sit, katshutse. So one is true and the other one is truth.
Okay.
Is it correct? Yeah.
Okay.
So is this also there in Thado? I mean, I'm just curious. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mimi, for the questions and the comments. To answer to your first question, yes, the true and truth, that is, I made him sit, right?
Yes.
So, that is there in Thado. To, because to has the same form in stem 1 as and stem 2. Let me not take that example. I'll take another example. Say stand, where you have a clear distinction between stem 1 and stem 2. I stand will be kadinge, ding with the nga, and stem 2 kadin sae. In I made him stand, it will be the stem 2. It will not be ding but din. So that is there in Thado. Yeah.
Oh,
and you also have a causative suffix, right? Sa.
Yes. Kadin
yes.
sae, kadin
yeah. So and Mizo too, if you want it to be causative, actually, you would put a causative suffix tir, katotir. So that means tir, katotir. So that means I made him sit.
And I think you have missed the presentation. I had that example, and we also have in effective like I ate, I made her
Really good.
eat.
So,
Or,
yeah.
Yeah.
So in that also we have both benefictive and causative. We have, and in the causative and benefictive, the stem to occurs. Okay,
Yeah.
and coming back to your first question, in the ahi kind of construction, the agreement is not with the subject. Suppose I say, I am standing. Okay. I can say kading A. I am standing. When I have A, it will be K kading A. The agreement will be with the ka, will be with the first person, but I can also K kadin ahi, where the stem two will occur, and the A agreement is not with the subject K, but it will be something like it is that I am standing. So the agreement with the why a comes is not because of ka, but because of he. Like he is like something like the English copula, where like it is that I am standing. Like I hope I have answered your question, me.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's answer.
Okay, to come back to Mimi's question about in ahi. So ahi construction are always bicloser in Thado, as Mary has pointed out. So it is the case, or it is that. So this is one complement clause, and ahi is the main clause. So that so in the example, keikadin ahi, there the agreement is with the subject. So R agrees with the agreement sits with the in the main clause. So the main clause is ahi, and the not with the agreement never
Not
falls
with the
in
ka.
in the subordinate clause. But in other sentences, if it is ahi, if I simply say ahi, so it can be something like dummy subject it. So it's equivalent to it is, something like that. Ahi, it is, yeah. It is raining, yeah, something like that. It
Oh,
is.
okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe you should know some Mizo too, I think.
Yes, a little bit. A little bit. I grew up speaking Mizo actually.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yes, but now I've forgotten.
Okay. Meantime, we have one question from I don't know who is it, but it's joined with the name T. So
Wait,
let
it's
me
me,
read it
Bijan,
out.
it's me.
Oh, is
Yeah.
it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, because sorry. Then why don't you speak directly? Yeah, then.
Yeah, I was just curious regarding that ahi. Is it increasing one subject, dummy subject? I was just curious because it
Yes,
looks
yes.
like like subject raising to me syntactically. It is
Yes, it is,
increasing
Monali.
no argument.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is the he is the agrees with the dummy subject it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is. To answer to your question, yes, it is.
Okay.
So basically, it's a valence increasing operation happening in this I am standing.
Yes.
In
It,
spite
like
of
it
being
is,
yeah, it is intransitive, but then again, it is basically there is an additional subject. So it
no,
looks
no.
like it is it is an intransitive sentence, but it has two arguments,
No, no, no. There are two clauses.
two clauses. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Not the transitivity doesn't get affected. It is something like it is that I am standing.
Yeah, yeah.
Standing still remains intransitive. Yeah.
So it is
That
still a subject agreement, but it is a dummy subject.
yes. The R is agreeing with it and not with I.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Monali, for that question. So I was wondering, and this is just an curiosity to know also, in the negative construction, if stem one take low, then what happens in that kind of construction, Mary ma'am? Like, is the sentence give a nonsense meaning or the negation? What happens? Means,
Low.
yeah, low is in one of the slide, it was mentioned that in the negative construction, stem one always take po and stem two take always like low. So if this is just out of my curiosity that if stem 1 took low, then what happens to the meaning of negation or the construction? It remains the same as a negation, or is there any effects on it?
You mean can you change
Yes, yes.
low with po or
yeah,
no?
Low with po, yes.
Yeah, you cannot have amma achi po e. He did not go. Okay, then you have the a. You have the a clause. Then amma achi he a. You can also have achi lo a he. Then again the construction will be a he, where only the stem 2 can occur and not stem 1. So you cannot have.
Okay.
It will be ungrammatical, in other words.
Oh, that's a rule of the language only. Okay.
Yeah, it will not be acceptable to a native speaker.
Okay, to add up to Vijay's question, low occurs in interrogative sentences. So in interrogative sentences, you have something like, did you not go? Or did you sleep? Or did you go to school? So in such sentences, low will occur. So low cannot occur in the, where poi occurs. Poi occurs only in what you call in the declarative sentences. So the distribution of where low will occur and where poi will occur are strictly distributed. So one occurs in the interrogative sentences, the other occurs in declarative sentences.
Oh, it's rigidly classified. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, participants, if you have any question, query, we have still time. Maybe your comments also, we welcome you to share. I hope so. There's no more question and query from the participants.
Okay, the last general comments.
Okay.
Examining Thadok text, I have seen that there is no, I am also wondering which of the two compounds, whether compound 1 or compound 2 takes the stem. So this is something that I'm also looking at. I was trying to look at my example, so I'm not finding them. This is one area as pointed out by the Temsu. If there are two compound verbs, either the first or the second takes the compound. So this is one area that can be looked at into. And the other issue is that, or a trend is that not all verbs carry stem alternation. So in many verbs don't have stem alternation, despite all these testing like interrogative, subordinate clause, or question being question, the object or subject being question. So some verbs don't take a stem at all. So how do you treat those stem when there is no distinction between the two, either in tone or segmentally, or even in other morphosyntactic distribution? Like for the word T, kati, or even if you say kati, I said, or I said it, then did you say, also they're not TM. So there the tone is the same and the verb is the same, the form is the same. So there is no what you call segmental distinction, tone distinction, or even morphosyntactic distinctions are not there. So in such example, how do you treat them? Do you simply leave them unmarked, or how do you do?
Okay, I think since you have missed the first part of the presentation, you have that. I think I'm not already. I have stopped sharing my slide, but in my slide number 9, I have examples of what you are talking about, where you have homophonous forms, or the two forms having the same, like sim, to read or study, art, to, thought, ve, mu, to see. All this, they have the same form. So what, from my data, what I have seen is that when the first, the stem 1 has a low tone, because stem 2 generally is all the stem 2s have low tone. So when there are no other segmental changes, you have the same forms. Like For example, mu, to see. Ama ka mu e, amana mu am. You will have the same form, and both the stem 1 and the stem 2 also have the same form. So when you already have, stem 1 and stem 2, when you already have stem 1 having a low tone, then and there are no other segmental changes, they will be homophonous in nature. Yeah, and we have so many examples of that in the language.
Yeah, and I think that's why Ken Van Beek suggests that if you have stem 2, you mark stem 2 and stem 1. And if you have neither, it'll just be unmarked. That'd be easier
That's why
because
why in my presentation I did not mark in slide.
Because when you say verb stem alternation, it doesn't mean every verb has a stem alternation.
Yes, there are
just
many
means
verbs which have the same forms.
Yeah, phonologically, there's, you cannot distinguish it. So either by tone or some other segmental change. So I think that would be a really good practice to follow in these languages.
Yes.
Is to just mark 1 and 2, and if it's unmarked, it means there's no stem alternation. So so thank you for clarifying that.
All right, then I think that was the last question from the participants' side. Yeah, with that question and answer, we end with this discussion session. Now, I request Dr. Monali Longmalai to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bijan. And a huge thank you to our speaker for today's session, Dr. Mary Kim Haokip, for a very interesting talk on verb stem alternation in Thado. And we had a very enlightening discussion also from the participants today. And I would like to sincerely thank all the participants who have actively engaged in the discussion today, and also to other participants who have been sincerely listening to the presentation and the discussion. Thank you to all, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, once again, and have a nice weekend.
Yeah, same to all. Yeah, happy
What is the
weekend.
next step Thank you. Good night. Who will be speaking in the next session, next Saturday?
Bye.
Next speaker will be Mosil Khalim. We will soon send the flyer in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, we'll roll it out very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.